You're listening to Glove Up or Shut Up on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
My name is Peter H. I'm joined once again by my co-host from Omaha, Nebraska, Stevie J.
Back from your adventures in Toronto. How was your weekend?
There were some very intriguing matchups. To see it live doesn't do them justice, and for those who watch wrestling, listen to this podcast, the 2-minute Goldberg-Brock Lesnar match was Undertaker streak worthy.
To be honest, that was not the best thing you saw the whole weekend. I'd say it has to be Shinsuke Nakamura and Samoa Joe, or maybe Asuka and Mickie James.
Actually, Nakamura and Joe was my favorite, but a very close second was the 2 out of 3 Falls match.
Oh yeah, that tag team match definitely was the highlight. I would even say it might rank above Joe and Nakamura, but it's very close because they put on a war, and DIY, Gargano and Ciampa, for those MMA listeners who don't know what I'm talking about, DIY was 2 of the best wrestlers on the independent scene before they came to NXT, and as a team, they are just fantastic. But I also want to give props, as long as we're talking about it, to that entrance for Bobby Roode. That whole choir standing there singing the Glorious song, that was awesome. As was the violin players for Nakamura. Tell me you didn't get chills when that happened.
I did, and that's when I noticed a MMA announcer in the front row for the show.
Well, I'm not surprised.
The man with the hat, Jim Ross, front row seats.
Well, I told you beforehand he had a one-man show in Toronto that weekend.
Yeah, I know. I saw him first, but like 3 matches before they showed it on the big screen. Like, he's unmistakable presence there. It's just like you can't hide him.
Dude, you could be sitting in the stands at a college football game and see him from 1,000 feet away.
Yeah. Well, Stevie, we've got lots of talk with UFC. We have Bellator to cover. We have lots of news. Let's get with the news. But the big story, speaking of someone you can see a mile away, and unfortunately he's got a really ugly sweater. Fedor Emelianenko is back, and he's fighting in Bellator against Matt Mitrione. Your thoughts?
How much of that Matt Mitrione promo did you believe where he said he signed the contract without seeing the name?
Actually, I might be the unpopular opinion. I think he did it. I think it's legit. Just because his reaction, there's faking and then there's being, holy crap, like, what did I get myself into? Because it's not the Fedor of old, but it's still Fedor.
No, I've heard that he knew this at least 3 weeks before they did it.
Oh, 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's too bad.
I mean, it makes for a good angle. It definitely made for a good write-up on MMA Mania, but I wouldn't take any of that at 100% face value.
Well, I think it's an interesting fight.
I think that's an interesting sweater he wore.
Don't know how popular the Bill Cosby wardrobe is in Russia these days, but whatever.
I guess it must have been a cold flight coming over from St. Petersburg or wherever he flew out of.
Maybe the fight's sponsored by Jell-O Pudding Pops. Who knows? But
Bill
it's
Cosby
scary.
Jokes don't really get over in 2016. Maybe we should not go there.
Yeah, probably not. But when it comes to this fight, man,
Mitrione
really
is gonna eat him for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and breakfast.
You got Mitrione
To
winning.
quote your favorite fighter, Mike Tyson.
Yeah. You got Mitrione winning this fight.
Please. I mean, when has Fedor looked good in a recent fight? He even nearly got killed by Fabio Maldonado, and if we're not for favorable judges in Russia, he probably would have lost.
Yeah, that was when the UFC was here in Ottawa. I remember that because we were watching it on the Fight Pass app. Yeah.
And it's not like Fabio Maldonado is the world's greatest fighter ever. It's not like he had the undefeated 10-year streak that Fedor did. I mean, this is Fabio Maldonado with all due respect, and he nearly beat him.
It's just, if you're comparing Maldonado to Matt Mitrione.
And Mitrione is a way better fighter than Maldonado.
I don't know. You don't sign over to Bellator if you don't have something left to prove or something left in the tank.
You sign because you're friends with Scott Coker and you want to stick it to UFC. That's why you sign.
Well, moving on to another potential super fight. Not super fight, but it's an interesting signing that's been rumored now. We talked off air about this, Stevie. Rashad Evans tried to fight in New York. That got shut down by the commission. The fight got moved to Toronto. That fight got shut down by the commission. So Tim Kennedy is saying, why not bring over this fighter? I'll fight him in Toronto. Tim Kennedy has got stones because he's calling out Anderson Silva.
Again, is this really such a bad call considering that the Anderson Silva of 2016 isn't the guy that went undefeated for 6-7 years in his weight class?
You don't think it's risky though?
I think if you're Tim Kennedy, it's not a big enough risk to not do it. I think it's a safe call out. I think he'd have far worse time calling out far more dangerous opponents than Anderson Silva. I don't think Silva is that guy that he used to be.
I don't know. Silva strikes me as the type of fighter that I never in a million years thought I would ever say this, Stevie.
Mm-hmm.
But if Anderson Silva is playing with house money, that is scary.
I think Anderson Silva is not a guy that you would be complacent fighting, but if you're a middleweight or a light heavyweight, either one, because we've seen Anderson Silva fight at both lately, if you're in one of those two divisions and you're at the peak of your physical prowess and things are going really well for you in the octagon, that's a safe call out.
Well, we mentioned 205, and we're just going to jump around different stories here. The New York State Athletic Commission. I don't know, but usually they don't have the power to suspend someone for missing weight.
But they sure have the power to suspend somebody for walking around the cage acting like a goof.
Yes. You can mention that. I was more leaning towards 2 suspensions, one for 6 months and one for 3 months, that the New York State Athletic Commission has doled out because of UFC 205.
That's right.
Kelvin for 6 months and Thiago Alves just got popped for 3 months. Now, who, I'm not doing the New Day impression, but who is this goof you're talking about?
Yoel Romero.
Oh.
They didn't take kindly to him leaving the cage for a post-fight celebration and goose-stepping his way around the octagon. They were like, yeah, forget that. You're suspended for 2 months.
I don't know if the MMA world is getting suspension happy, because we also have Rory Nelson getting suspended, but it'll be cut in half if he apologizes to McCarthy.
Yeah, well, he has to do it on television, in front of a live audience. He has to make a public spectacle of apologizing to him.
Do you think he does it?
I think if UFC lets him, he would. The question is, would they let him?
All right. A fight was added to UFC on Fox 22, Mizuto Hirota against Cole Miller.
All right. Well, that's...
Cole Miller, that's a name that I don't know if he's... Do you think he's got anything left? I mean, he has that niche for himself, but at what point does he get released? You know what I mean? I have that feeling he's up and down, up and down. He's never really consistent, never really that title fight. You know what I mean?
The closest he got to that point was when he had back-to-back wins over Andy Ogle and Sam Sicilia. It's not gone quite so well for him since that time, and wasn't really going too terribly great for him before that time.
Now, Hall of Famer BJ Penn, one of your favorites, is back UFC Fight Night 103. He'll be facing Yair Rodriguez.
Okay, well, assuming that everything goes according to plan, because the last time he was going to fight on a card, we know what happened with that.
Mm-hmm. And I do want to clarify, Kelvin got suspended for 6 months for skipping the weigh-ins. Not because he didn't make weight, but because he skipped the weigh-ins entirely. He knew he wasn't going to make weight, so he just blew it off.
Yeah, he skipped the weigh-ins because he didn't make the weight, so how is it not really the same thing? He didn't make weight.
Now, here's a would you rather. JDS wants a rematch against Alistair Overeem, but says he'll happily take a fight against Stipe Miocic.
I'm not sure either one of those is a good decision.
No. It's It's like getting shot in the head or shot in the shoulder, or shot in the leg or shot in the arm. You're still getting shot.
I suppose if you're really wanting to make the most of your opportunity, you go for the champion, but either way, no.
Yeah. I apologize because I did not write this fighter's name down, but in Invicta, there was a fighter who couldn't make weight. She missed weight by like a pound, I think, or a pound and a half.
Oh, you're talking about the girl who chopped off her hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, Esther Lynn was the one who cut her hair so she could make weight.
Unbelievable. And she made weight.
Yeah, and there was a great picture that Esther took of cutting her hair, and she's like, the brass on this woman to ask me to cut her hair so she could make weight. That's what real fighters are made of. It's a great picture. You gotta go find it.
Please tell me she won the fight.
I don't even remember now. I remember the haircut. The haircut stands out more than the fight. I knew this was going to happen at some point somewhere because there are so many female fighters that have a full, long, flowing head of hair. You knew at some point somebody was going to chop their hair to make weight.
Speaking of another fight being announced, Hisaki Kato fights Ralph Gracie. Bellator 170. Pollock Gracie.
You ought to know this by now. Brazilians have the silent R.
Oh, man.
It's not Royce Gracie like that stupid DJ.
Oh, I know that much. Who said that, by the way? I want that guy.
It was a DJ at that K1 Dynamite show in Los Angeles. Remember, he was playing music, and all of a sudden he said, "Make some noise for Royce Gracie!" And the whole place started booing him.
Justin Quiche fights Ashley Yoder at UFC Fight Night 102 in Albany, New York.
All right, that should be a fun fight.
And Derek Brunson wants a rematch with Yoel Romero. I don't know about that.
Yeah. I've been wrong about Romero so many times that I'm just going to say nobody should call him out at this point. Just nobody wants to fight with him. Even Bisping really shouldn't want to fight with him.
No, Bisping should run for the hills for that fight. Away from that fight.
He should run for the hills and run for his life.
Exactly. Nice reference.
Thank you.
And one more fight announcement. UFC UFC fighter Stevie Ray wants to fight Diego Sanchez.
Okay.
That's an entertaining fight on paper.
In reality, at this point, Diego is the miracle man. Every time I think he's done, he's got one more left in the tank.
Yeah. And he passes his drug test, so that's all you can ask for.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's talk about these cards, Stevie. We got a bunch to get through. That's why we're rushing through the news this week. Let's start with, actually, you know what? Let's start with Bellator first. Let's go with Bellator 163, sorry.
165, you were right the first time. Yeah.
Now, there were some interesting fights on the prelims. Let's start with Kevin Ferguson Jr. against Aaron Hamilton.
Things were going well right up until the point they weren't going well for Baby Slice. He seemed to be the physically stronger fighter. He was throwing around his opponent and looked really good, taking him to the ground, which, you really wouldn't expect from, either the late Kimbo, God rest his soul, or his son. You wouldn't think takedowns, right?
No.
But Baby Slice was getting him, and he was looking good getting him, and he was passing on the ground and trying to go for things, and at one point, he went for a choke and didn't get it, and all of a sudden, Aaron Hamilton reversed the position, put the exact same choke on him, and tapped him out.
That was a pretty good choke, though. It wasn't like half in, half out. That was
well, if you're fighting Baby Slice, are you going to put it halfway in, or are you going to sink that sucker in deep?
You're not going to half-ass it, that's for sure.
No.
I've seen it where you kind of half-ass it, but it's more of a setup move. When he goes to defend, you slap on a different move, and then the guy's at your mercy.
Right, like using the choke to set up a Kimura or whatever.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. If you're going to do a half-ass submission like that, it's a setup move. It's a fake-out. What do you think I'm doing this? No, I got you back now.
Or if you know the guy's chin is tucked and there's no chance of getting it, but you just want him to keep defending himself so he can run out the clock.
Exactly. All right, so main card, Linton Vassell against Francis Carmot.
this is pretty much the fight I expected him to have. And I know you thought Francis Carmont was a better fighter, and sure, he had a great streak in UFC when he was there. He trains at TriStar, and we all know that. We could see GSP in his corner. The camera kept focusing on him. But, Linton Vassell, I've been saying this for a while now, just because he lost his title fight with Emmanuel Newton the first time they met, doesn't mean that he's not a capable, durable, tough, extremely dangerous fighter for everybody at 205. And the fact that he's won 2 fights in a row now, the rematch with Newton and this fight with Carmont, people should know the swarm is coming for that title.
Absolutely. And Carmont, back to the drawing board, but he's not done.
Well, yeah, you can say he's not done, but those scores were pretty darn lopsided.
Yeah, his next fight, he has to come out like a bat out of hell.
Right.
Now let's move on to Carrie-Ann Taylor-Melendez against Sheila Padilla.
Whew, it's not much to say. That was over quick.
No,
47 seconds.
She probably thought the fight happened on Sunday.
I believe it was Chael Sonnen who said on commentary, "You've just seen the difference between 12-ounce boxing gloves and 4-ounce MMA gloves."
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, that kickboxing experience was put to the test, and it paid. And I like the post-fight promo even better than the fight, because they brought Gilbert Melendez into the cage, and he said, "We got a new Melendez here. That's Scary Carrie. She's coming for the rest of y'all, and I don't mind taking a backseat to her."
There you go. Now, Adam Piccolotti against Brandon Gertz. Piccolotti, sorry.
Good performance. Undefeated, young lightweight. Great interview, too. Very friendly guy. I really enjoyed my conversation with him, and I had to chuckle a little when he said in his post-fight interview, "I talked to some of the media, and I told them that I'm a lightweight contender, and I think I just proved it." I'm like, hello, some of the media here, and I'm one of those guys. I was watching. Hello.
Hello. All right. Michael Page and Fernando Gonzalez.
Oh, my God. Do we really have to talk about this fight?
How?
Yeah, exactly. What can you... It was terrible.
But the scorecards. Explain that to me. How?
I think the judge who scored every round for Gonzalez scored it that way because Page did absolutely nothing.
Or maybe he owes Gonzalez money at this rate. That was disgusting. He did not win it all 3 rounds.
Well, neither guy won anything, really. Page did slightly more than almost nothing, and Gonzalez did damn near nothing.
I don't want to see a rematch, do you?
No. This fight was just the absurdity of a dangerous striker who doesn't want to take the chance of giving his opponent any chance of an upset versus a guy who knows his opponent is a dangerous striker and doesn't want to take any chances by rushing in and eating a knee to the face. So it was the worst possible. You know, they say styles make fights, and this was the case where styles don't make fights because Fernando didn't want to get in there on him, and Page didn't want to give him the chance to get in on there, so they just kept circling each other and testing the range and never even touching each other.
Now, let's talk about this main event. Michael Chandler, Benson Henderson. Is this a fight you want to see back again?
If they did it a second time, I'd watch it a second time, because this was a very competitive fight. I thought the first round was 100% Chandler's round. I thought the 5th round was 100% Henderson's round. And the 3 in the middle, depending on what you're looking for, you can score those 3 either way.
It was not debatable, but I mean, Chandler knows what it's like now to fight Benson Henderson in a high-pressure situation, and I think he'll be more prepared for the second fight, but so will Benson. I think a second fight will be much more telling.
Except you can't really give Henderson the second fight because...
Not right away.
No, not at all, and I'm going to tell you why. 2 reasons. One, if you look at his recent record, it just doesn't add up to being a challenger multiple times in the weight class because he's lost 2 out of his last 3, and that's since he signed to Bellator. One was in a different weight class. I give you that. And one was a really weird fight that he won, but who knows if he would have won if it went the distance. It ended by injury. So this was the first fight in Bellator where he's really looked good. And yeah, you might want a rematch because of that, but the other reason that you can't do that is he wants to retire from MMA and go into the Army.
That's a noble thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so, there's no real easy way to transition, so let's just move on to the UFC Fight Night in... Oh wait, that's the wrong one. I had the wrong card up. I had this week's show up on my screen. UFC Fight Night 99, Mousasi versus Hall 2 from the SSE Arena in Belfast, Northern Ireland.
I think Gegard Mousasi proved his point.
4 minutes and 31 seconds.
Yeah, that didn't take long.
You could make a third match here, a rubber match. You could.
Again, I'm gonna say no.
No?
Well, there's even more of a compelling reason in this case, because at least with Henderson and Chandler, that was a close enough fight that you can go, yeah, maybe Henderson gets it if he gets a different judge in there, and maybe if he won one of those rounds in the middle that he didn't, it was that close that you could see that, but this wasn't close. This was a one-sided massacre, and this is a guy that's now lost 3 fights in a row. How is Hall even gonna win enough fights to get back to Gegard Mousasi when he's in the top 5 and Hall's on his way down south out of the top 15? You're not gonna see these guys match up again.
Oh, never say never in this business, that's for sure.
I'm gonna say never. I think Gegard Mousasi is at a level way above Uriah Hall at this point, and honestly, given some of the things we heard in the build-up to this fight about how Hall thought he should quit and his family and friends talked him out of it, I kind of feel like he's mentally checked out on fighting.
Sad way to go, though.
Hey, if you're going to keep taking losses the way he's taken them, getting knocked out the way he did by Derek Brunson and Gegard Mousasi, maybe it's time to do something else for a living.
Maybe. Speaking of someone who should be doing something else for a living,
Ross Pearson.
30-27, 30-27,
yeah.
and 27-30.
Okay.
Are you kidding me?
You are once again freaking out. Now, with the previous freak out, I understand because the Gonzalez-Page fight was awful. How do you score that for anybody? But this one, I can understand because I agree with you that Ray won that entire fight. I also understand that 10-9 and 9-10 are really damn close to the same thing. Even though we tend to think of 10-9 as being a round that one fighter dominated over another, that doesn't necessarily mean the case. You can be really close at 10-9 or you can be really far apart at 10-9. There's no gradation between the two. So if one judge decides that round was close enough that Pearson just did a little bit more, then that flips over. It's not that big of a gap to go 10-9 for your opponent in that case.
And
it was a deceptive fight to watch it too, because Pearson was the guy that was engaging even though he was getting outstruck.
Okay, if you took away what the judges actually scored it, and I asked you to watch this fight and give me the score, would you give all 3 rounds to Pearson?
No, I wouldn't even give 1 round to Pearson.
It's ridiculous to think that he won all 3 rounds on that one scorecard.
I'm gonna say it seems ridiculous, but it's not necessarily. Now, ridiculous to me would be if you gave 10-8 rounds to Stevie Ray and then you gave 3 10-8 rounds to Pearson. That would be ridiculous. If one guy won 30-24 and the other guy won 30-24, then you'd be like, what the ever-loving fuck?
Mm-hmm. Let's move on to Alexander Volkov and Timothy Johnson.
Well, I guess the question here is, who do you think won?
I agree with the 29-28. I have no problem with that score in this fight.
I think Johnson definitely won 1 out of those 3 rounds, but I think Volkov used his height and his reach to his advantage, and I think 2 out of those 3 rounds were definitely his.
But all 3 for Johnson, though? I'd have to watch it like 3 or 4 times to try to figure out where he got all 3 rounds for that fight.
I'm going to have a much harder time justifying a judge giving 3 rounds to Johnson than I am in Stevie Ray and Ross Pearson, because at least Pearson was trying to win, and there was clearly cases where you could make the argument he was doing more even if he was getting hit more. Whereas Johnson, he got walloped several times really hard by Volkov, and you can't argue that he won those rounds when he was backpedaling and trying to survive.
And let's have another decision. Let's go with Artem Lobov and Teruto Ishihara.
Well, you know what? Artem may be a journeyman fighter, and I may never think the world of him, but he had 2 things going for him. One was that Conor McGregor, his teammate, was in the front row, just there to enjoy the show and cheer on his boy. And the other thing he had going for him was being the hometown fighter. Even though he's the Russian Hammer or whatever his nickname is, he's lived in Ireland for so long and fought with the Straight Blast Gym for so long that they treat him like he's the home country boy. So he had a lot of motivation. He had all his team there, all his family there, and so he went out and gave probably the best fight Artem Lobov could ever give in all the right circumstances with everything going for him. This was as good as it's going to get for him.
Anything on the prelims that catch your eye, or should we move on?
Kevin Lee had a good submission of Magomed Mustafayev. That was an impressive win.
The only thing I would say is 3 words, Stevie, and you can go. I'll give you the mic for this one. Poor Ian McCall.
Yeah, bad luck. I think there's something to be said for the fact that it may not be long for him in the flyweight division, because these things keep coming up, and I think the fact that it's a difficult weight cut for him may be why they keep coming up.
But sometimes it's not his fault, though. It's also just sometimes the nature of the business, right?
Yeah, sometimes it is the nature of the business, but I get this feeling that health problems are going to continue to occur because he's too big to be a flyweight. I think he might be better off moving up. I don't know. We'd have to have an interview with him again and talk to him about that, but right now it's hard to say that things are going well for him when he keeps missing fights for one reason or another. Sometimes it's the nature of the situation, and sometimes it's a bad weight cut that leaves him feeling ill the day before the fight. This is a hard one to call right here on the air, and I would really like to talk to him and find out what he thinks.
All right, so let's move on to the other card that happened on Saturday, and this one had a very, I don't want to say predictable main event.
Actually, I believe you called it for Nogueira.
I did. I thought Bader, I was thinking Bader would get caught or something. I thought, I was giving him the benefit of the doubt because Bader is a very definition of a hot and cold fighter.
He's not that cold. Nogueira is past his prime and Bader has not hit his.
Well, if Nogueira was past his prime, the fight would have been stopped in the first round. It would have taken 3 rounds to beat him.
Do you think there was any point where Nogueira was winning that fight?
No, but that's not the point. The point
No, that is the point, Peter. The point is that it was never close. Bader didn't finish him in the first 2 rounds, but he didn't lose.
But now he's a free agent.
I think they'll re-sign him.
You think so?
It's top 5 light heavyweight. Why wouldn't you?
You think Bellator would have given him a good offer, though?
I think they would give him a good offer, but I don't think UFC wants him to walk away. I think they need a guy at his level who can give a challenging fight to any of the guys above him in the top 5.
Now,
The only guy that he looked really bad with was Rumble Johnson, and Rumble Johnson makes a lot of people look bad.
Now, if only there was a few names in Bellator that Bader could fight. There's some intriguing matchups there in Bellator, though.
Are you suggesting Phil Davis? Is that what you're hemming and hawing about?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he does have history with him. He did beat him, but it wasn't a dominant fight. It was a split decision, but...
It would be a good fight, though.
It would, but if he did come over to Bellator, which you're just wildly speculating about at this point, I would want him to have a couple of proving fights before he gets to the champion.
Okay, you're more the Bellator expert than myself. Who would you put against Bader in Bellator as a proving fight, so to speak?
Well, you could start with Joey Beltran.
Ooh, that is a good one. No, as I said, there's some intriguing fights in Bellator, but you gotta think that, UFC would give him the much more financial lucrative contract, and fighters, you take the money or you take the fights? Usually you take the money.
I think unless he's really sore about whatever sort of Reebok sponsorship money he gets, he probably stays.
Alright, let's talk about the co-main, Thomas Almeida against Albert Morales.
Again, I hate to say I told you so, Peter, but boy did I tell you so.
Knocked him out in 1:37 of the second round.
And once again, do you think there was ever a point where he wasn't winning the fight?
No. What about Claudio Gadelha against Courtney Casey?
Now, do you think that was an illegal head kick
we're
in
not
the third?
doing this again.
Okay, well, you asked the question, I ask you the question. This is the story of this fight. Was she faking it in the third round, yes or no?
I hope she wasn't faking it. I hope it was real. I really want to believe it's real.
She's pissed that people think she was faking it.
It's not something you want to have hanging over your head for the rest of your career.
I don't see a compelling reason for her to fake it. It's not like it changed the outcome of the fight.
Yeah, that I agree with, but it's also like, okay, I'm going to use a wrestling analogy. I'm going to use a wrestling analogy first.
Can I say one thing before you do?
Sure.
This is not the case of an NBA player taking a flop before the elbow even hits him.
No, but it's like a wrestler. We've seen wrestlers in the ring have real legit injuries in the ring on live TV or live pay-per-view, and they tough it out and they finish the match. Right?
Yes.
Then you've got wimps like Sin Cara who will dislocate a finger and tell the referee to wave off the match while he pops it back into place.
You're going to say that's wimpy, and I understand what you're getting at, but I've never dislocated a finger, and I don't know that I would want to continue to have a match, especially when you got to pick somebody up and throw them around. I don't think that would be very pleasant to do with a dislocated finger.
But don't.
I know that you're talking about the mental toughness, though. And
you don't become a fighter with that level of.
Okay, look
right,
here.
mental game.
I can give you a perfect example of that because there's a fighter I spoke to about this within the last 2 days, L.C. Davis. He told me that going into his fight with Joe Warren, he knew he had messed up his knee. He thought he had sprained it. He thought he'd be okay. He decided to gut it out and take the fight anyway. And then after the fight was over, he went and got it checked out, did the orthopedic surgeon and the x-rays and all that other stuff. And they said, you have a torn ACL.
Oh.
So he took the fight with a torn ACL. That's pretty much the definition of what you're talking about.
Well, look at JDS and Cain Velasquez.
That's, again, the definition of what you're talking about. Fighters are a little bit different from the rest of us mortals. And I said the same thing to LC. I'm like, the fact that you were training, you were doing physical rehab before your surgery, that's not normal. That's special.
I will put another job on the same level as a UFC fighter or mixed martial arts fighter. I will put another job in that same level in the sporting world. Mm-hmm. Hockey player.
Yeah, it does take a rare breed to take the kind of punishment a hockey player takes and to fight through the injuries and keep on playing.
there was a guy in Columbus he was taken off the ice, had to get 36 stitches in his head, came back and scores the game winner.
Yeah, that is a special breed. There is no question.
All right, what about Krzysztof Joko against Tal Ladies?
One-sided?
I thought it was all 3 rounds. I was surprised when I heard 29-27.
I'm wondering if that was a 10-10, but I don't know. I didn't see the
maybe.
scorecards.
Kamara Usman beat Wally Alves by another decision. Yay.
I think this one was probably a little more one-sided than Joko and Lattes, if you're being honest about it.
And Sergio Moraes that beat Zakatao. Split decision there.
I'd have to watch that fight again to see the scorecards and make my own decision, because, I mean, it seems like Moraes probably has more of an upside, but that shouldn't be the reason he won. I almost need to have like the copy strike and have a little clicker and go click every time somebody lands a punch and see who actually did more.
Well, there's only one other fight I want to move on before we move on to the next show here, and that is Francimar Barriso against Darren Stewart.
Okay, why? Because of the headbutt?
Yeah. That was shit happens.
Yeah, that was shit happens. See, I actually thought you were going to talk about Cesar Mutanch, because that finish in the prelims on FS1 was pretty sweet.
It was definitely sweet. I don't disagree with you on that. I'm just, I know I shouldn't laugh.
Well, you kind of can in this case.
No. When it comes to the accidental headbutt with Barrasso and Stewart, the original result was they gave the fight to Stewart as a TKO victory. And it's like, I had flashbacks to New York when Buffer had to read the card. And it's like, you serious? You want me to read something? Are you okay? Like, at what point do you just, like, scratch your head? It's like, no, that wasn't a TKO win. Like, I'm glad they fixed it and declared it a no contest. That's the proper decision. That's the proper call to make there, but I don't know. It made me laugh.
Yeah.
But I feel bad because you never want to see a fight end that way, ever.
No. It's not the first time I've seen that happen either. I was there for a Bellator fight when two guys had a headbutt and the fight was stopped, and since it was only in the second round, they did actually announce it the right way. They declared a no contest right there on the spot because there wasn't enough of the fight that had taken place for it to go to the scorecards.
All right, let's move on. UFC Fight Night 101 this weekend in Victoria, not BC, Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, in the Rod Laver Arena.
Yes. I'm trying to get excited about Derek Brunson and Robert Whittaker.
Really? You need motivation for this?
Kinda.
I'm excited for Whittaker. Brunson, I don't know. I think I want to see Brunson win this fight, but Whittaker fighting in Australia, yeah, I don't know. I have a hard time betting against him in that situation.
Yeah, but at the same time, 4-fight win streak for Brunson, and good guys, except maybe for Uriah Hall that he beat to get there.
True. Be an entertaining fight. I don't know why you need to be motivated to watch it, though. I'm excited for it.
I think right now it's just overkill for me with 2 UFCs and a Bellator card all on the same day last Saturday.
Yeah, and we're running out the clock with Bellator, with UFC, New Year's Eve, and it's just so much.
Too many cards between now and the end of December.
So we're running short on time, Stevie, so I'm just going to say Matthews and Holbrook. I got Matthews.
I agree, Matthews, yes.
I got to go with Noak beating Akhmedov.
Let me think.
Really?
I know you're going for the hometown thing since it's in Australia, but you always like to talk about fighters having their back to the wall, and after losses, 2 straight losses for Akhmedov, he's the guy fighting with house money here. He's the guy with nothing to lose. And Noak, is great at home, but he's not always great everywhere else, and he has lost 2 in a row, so I think Akhmedov has a good chance here.
Yusuke Kasura against Alex Yokanovsky.
I got no prediction on that.
Neither do I. This is the filler part of the card. You've got Tyson Pedro against Kali Roundtree and Si Hee Ham against Danielle Taylor. That fight actually could be good.
I like Ham in that women's strawweight fight, and I like Roundtree in the light heavyweight fight, because he's the guy who got basically a second chance on the Ultimate Fighter, and now look where he is in UFC. So you talk about guts, heart, and determination. I think Roundtree exhibits all of those qualities.
Now, the prelim, obviously they put this as the main event, Chris Camozzi against Daniel Kelly.
Honestly, that fight should have been on the main card. I care way more about that than Yusuke Kasuya and Alex Volkanovski. I would rather see that on the main card. In fact, let me go as far as to say any of these fights on FS1 I would rather see on the main card. I'd rather see John Tuck because he's pretty damn good. I'd rather see Richard Walsh because he is a filthy, dirty, just nasty scrapper of a fighter. He always goes out there and busts his ass. And Ben Wynn and Gene Herrera, I would rather see that too.
Now, one other fight I do want to mention before we log off for the night. Marlon Vera against Ning Guanyu.
Okay.
Vera, I really, I want to see Vera win this fight.
His record is very spotty. It's,
that's the problem I have.
Win-loss. It's hard to know whether he's going to be anything good when he keeps not doing anything more than one fight in a row.
I got Vera, but I mean, he's really got to bring the A game because this is not a slouch here in Guanyu.
No, and Guanyu needs to stay away from tainted meat.
Oh, why am I not surprised?
Really? How can you talk about him and not even bring it up?
I've known you for how many years, and I'm still surprised sometimes. Like
he needs to leave the steak alone. That's all I can say.
Fair enough. All right, so I was going to ask you what's on tap for Thursday night AMP, but you Americans do Thanksgiving backwards, apparently.
No, you Canadians do it backward, not us.
All right, well, I do want to wish all the American listeners, and of course you, Stevie, a very happy Thanksgiving on Thursday.
And even though you already had yours, I want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving too, because you still have Black Friday the next day, just like us.
Yes, and Cyber Monday as well.
That's right.
All right, well, for Stevie J, I'm Peter H., the Hardcore Canadian. Thanks for listening, and as I always say, never leave it to the judges, and also, go Red Blacks in the Grey Cup.
And never leave it to the judges, and go Cyclones over the Mountaineers.
See ya.